What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on Lex Alexis. Today we are carrying on with our championship score predictions. We've made it to match day 10. Within a couple of days ago I made my week 9 score predictions, but we now have our second batch of mid-week championship games. The games keep on going at an accelerated pace and there's no time to breathe. We have to continue to predict 12 more championship games, and within a couple of days later you will see me predict match day 11. So absolutely no breaks, but after that it will be an international break. So after this quick period of games we can have a little bit of time to compose ourselves on the craziness that is going on within the championship. I did not have a good weekend, by the way, with predictions, so pressure's on to see if I can redeem myself this time around, but there's no guarantee because the championship is really truly living up to its nature, with it being the most unpredictable league in the world. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really helps grow this channel. You guys absolutely smashed it on the likes last video, by the way. 115 likes. You guys absolutely smashed it. Thank you guys so much. I put the like targets at 50 this time around, which potentially you guys could maybe beat again. Honestly, just hitting the like button is free to do, and it really does help the growth of this channel as well. And hitting the subscribe button in the bottom right as well also really helps the growth of this channel as well. I gotta say, this beard is looking a little bit worried because we gained a lot of traction and attention in my last video. So thank you guys for hitting the like and subscribe button. It doesn't go unnoticed. I observe it most days of the week, and it really does give me a smile, following for the fact that I've actually not done as much content recently because of my full-time work. So thank you guys so much for that terrific support, and if you can, please also share the channel too, because all these things really do help the growth of this channel. But without any further ado, let's start predicting 12 more championship games. We'll start off with Birmingham going up against Huddersfield Town. So Birmingham are going into this midweek set of games with a defeat in mind. They did lose against Norwich City over the weekend. One thing I'm noticing with Birmingham, their form has definitely taken a little bit of a nosedive. They have had quite a few tough games actually very recently, and obviously they have got a little bit of an injury list starting to grow as well, which is definitely not being helped with the amount of games that are going through at the moment. With Darren Moore and Huddersfield Town, I actually thought they put in a really decent performance against Ipswich Town, especially in that first half display. I actually felt they really did put Ipswich under a load of pressure and actually really frustrated them. They did take the lead eventually, but they couldn't hold on. They did concede a late equaliser when Brandon Williams did manage to score for Ipswich. Couple of controversies potentially with some decisions not going for Ipswich's way, but either way, it was a brilliantly managed performance by Huddersfield and Darren Moore, considering that Ipswich, were going into this game, looking like that they could be top of the league, and they did really well to make it difficult for them there. Going into this game, it's going to be very interesting to see what sort of game we get here. I don't anticipate a load of goals. Both of these teams very recently have not really found a lot of success on finding the ball in the back of the net so far. So as a prediction here, I think it's going to be low scoring, but I'm thinking here it might go to Birmingham's way with them being at home. I feel like if it's going to be any sort of result, it's either going to be a 0-0 draw or a 1-0 win to Birmingham. And I think personally, Birmingham might just about squeak a 1-0 victory. I think Birmingham are keen to respond from their poor form recently, and I think this is a good opportunity to do so for them. So I'm going to go 1-0 to the Blues. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Ipswich versus Hull. So I was just talking about Ipswich. They did manage to salvage a draw. It's actually their first draw of the season, and normally within those situations, if they did fall behind, they would find a way to recover all 3 points, but it did take them, I think, just a little bit too long for them to find that equaliser. But fair play to them for actually still being able to find that equaliser. They were definitely growing very frustrated. I think that one of the notable calls that wasn't given to Ipswich's way, feeling like that Omari Hutchinson was fouled in the box, and Sorba Thomas reacting very viciously, I would dare say, to Omari Hutchinson going down into the box as well. So definitely tensions were very high within that game, and I think Ipswich did well to compose themselves enough to get themselves with at least a draw. Now, with Hull City, they are going into this game with another draw. They've drawn their last couple of games, to be quite honest. And they've been doing all right, especially on the road. Their last performance on the road was actually a brilliant 3-1 victory over Stoke City. And one thing I am noticing with this Hull City side is that they are finding the ball in the back of the net in a really consistent rate. But Ipswich at home, you know, when you go to Ipswich Town, you are guaranteed goals. So in their last 3 home games, you have seen up to 10 goals. Yeah, 4 against Blackburn, 3 against Cardiff, and 3 against Leeds. So you will absolutely see goals within this game. And as a prediction, I'm going to predict a scoreline that reflects that. I'm going to go for an Ipswich win, actually. I'm going to go for 3-2 to Ipswich Town. Hull have been doing well, to be honest. You know, they've not lost since the opening day of the season, so I do think it's going to be quite a tough game for Ipswich. But I think they might just have enough firepower to potentially get the win. And also, I believe Sam Morsy is going to be back for suspension as well. So I think naturally they'll have a very strong midfield, which I think is the biggest key to Ipswich's success. So I'm going to go 3-2 to Ipswich. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Middlesbrough going up against Cardiff City. Both sides who seemingly have got really good form going into this game week. Middlesbrough, more specifically though, have had a bit of a recovery, back-to-back wins and very hard 4 wins against 2 difficult teams as well, to get 3 points at home in the Riverside against Southampton. You know, while Southampton's form has been very poor going into that game, it was still a Middlesbrough side who had not won a game until that moment there, and then they backed that up with a 3-2 victory over Watford. And I know Watford, with their form, they've been a little bit inconsistent, but it was a really bonkers game. Ryan McGree putting Middlesbrough up within the first half. I mean, that was absolutely sensational, and what followed from that was absolutely insane. Any of the teams could have actually won that game, and fair play to Middlesbrough for them being able to find enough chances to get that breakthrough. Cardiff are going into this weekend in fine form. I think it's 4 wins in a row for them. They are comfortably within the top 6 at this moment in time, with a very routine win over Rotherham over their weekend as well. Had to be a bit patient in the first half, but second half especially, they definitely came out of the gates looking really good. And I do think this game is going to be a really good test for both of these sides to see which either one of them can carry on with their fantastic form. So both teams playing pretty well and good momentum going into this game. As a prediction, however, I am thinking of backing Middlesbrough simply because they're the home side, and I feel with the options that they've got, I think Middlesbrough could be able to deal with it. But it wouldn't surprise me if Cardiff somehow squeak a 1-0 away win or something like that. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory. I think Middlesbrough might be able to squeak out with a win. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Plymouth going up against Millwall. So Plymouth are going to this weekend after that 1-1 draw with Hull. They did take the lead in that game, and potentially maybe a shot for them to take the lead. Randall managing to get the opening goal there, but conceding just before half-time was very poor timing on their part. And looking at the stats between them and Hull, it did look like Hull did create just that tiny bit more. But Plymouth not only were brilliant to shut Hull out, they did create chances of their own and have been able to be a real threat for many teams so far this season. Now, Millwall is a bit strange to describe how their season's gone at this moment. You've seen them play very well. I'm thinking of that 3-0 victory against Rotherham and a hard-fought win against Middlesbrough on the opening day of the season. But then you follow that up with a really poor 3-0 defeat to Leeds United, and then follow that up with a last game with a 3-0 loss against Swansea at the Den. I mean, it is very inconsistent with Millwall at this moment of time. And one thing that has been consistent within one of these two teams is that Plymouth have been brilliant at home park. Only Southampton have been able to beat them at home park so far this season. And their last game at home park, of course, was that incredible 6-2 victory over Norwich City. And I do think Norwich pose more of a threat than what Millwall do. So personally, I think Plymouth, once again, could potentially squeak a win out of this. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Plymouth. I think a lot of us have written Plymouth off about their home form, but honestly, I think that home form is going to be their biggest asset, which will keep them within the championship, and Millwall just seemingly in disarray with their form at this moment. So I'll go for Plymouth to win by 2-1. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Stoke versus Southampton. Now, this is, I think, a very interesting game to predict. Both teams are going to this midweek with a win under their belts, and in great pressure, they needed a win as well. Especially Stoke City, because they were sleepwalking their way into the bottom three if they weren't careful. And by the first half against Bristol City, it did look like that they were literally going to do exactly that. But fair play to them. They got a consolation just before half time. And I don't know what Alex Neil said, but he definitely got the right message across, because Stoke really were determined and up for it, and they ended up winning the game in the end by 3-2. Nathan Noah, I think, the 18-year-old, managing to get the winning goal within that Stoke City side. And this is what we've been wanting to see, these sorts of individual moments that will just really dig this Stoke side out of trouble. And this is, I think potentially could be a big win for them, and a big result going into their next couple of games. Southampton, you could safely say that they have had a big result that could help their future games. They managed to rid their poor 4-defeat losing streak by beating Leeds United at St Mary's by 3-1. It's fair to say not many people predicted this. I certainly didn't predict this either, but brilliant once again from Adam Armstrong to get 2 goals in the way that he did. Leeds were blown away. I think Leeds had slightly more of the ball, but Southampton working off it was sensational. And in that second half, it definitely was more Leeds just trying to build up and try and get back into it. But Southampton managed the game perfectly. And it has shown that Southampton don't have to necessarily play in a way just to kind of hog the ball and try and outpass the opposition. They can play in that way and still get effective results. And I'm glad that Russell Martin is thinking of tinkering that approach, and I think that is what they needed. I think Southampton just have looked a bit slow and predictable, and I think now, if they can have that in their locker, I think it will make Southampton just even more of a nightmare to deal with. As a prediction here, I've got to say, I'm backing both sides to get something here, so I'll compromise and go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw within this game. I can realistically see that, actually, based on how these teams are going. So I'll go for a draw. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is West Brom going up against Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, you couldn't have had more contrasting results from both of these sides going into this game. West Brom going into this game have had an unbelievable result. They beat the only unbeaten team in the Championship beyond this point, Preston North End, away from home as well by 4-0. It was an incredible performance, and statistically they deserved it. They limited Preston to a 0.42 XG at home. West Brom, I think, had over 20 shots. It was an incredible performance, and definitely a performance I've been waiting to see from West Brom to kind of dismantle a team like that, especially going into good form that Preston were going into. Sheffield Wednesday, however, less said about their form, the better. They are on course to potentially have had the worst start of any Championship team. I mean, that's crazy for you to think about, but then at the same time, they're still looking for their first win. The only EFL club this year still looking for their first win. They have been in close games, but very recently, those results have really not favoured them whatsoever. A 3-0 defeat in their last game against Sunderland, and didn't really lay a glove on them, unfortunately, as well. And I think here with West Brom high in confidence, Sheffield Wednesday low in confidence, I think that is going to be one result, and that is a West Brom win. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to the Baggies, but honestly, it could even be more than that. I'm thinking that I'm probably a little bit reasonable for Sheffield Wednesday for it not being too much of a ruling. So, sorry Sheffield Wednesday fans, but I think it's going to be another defeat, and I think I'm going to go for 2-0 West Brom, and really, that is really going to potentially put the final nail in the coffin for Cisco Munoz, but it's definitely going to increase the pressure. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now going to Wednesday's game. So let's go with Coventry versus Blackburn Rovers, both with very contrasting results from their last game. Coventry have picked up their first win since match day 2. I mean, it's incredible fact Coventry even sustained a 7-game period without a win, considering the talent that's in that squad. But they got a real needed win against QPR. Ellis Sims managing to get his first 2 goals, which is fantastic, considering the price tag he was put on it and the pressure that he was put and the shoes he had to fill as well. You know, unbelievable pressure for him. But I think now to see his first couple of goals within the Championship, you would hope that it could potentially start to reignite some brilliant form for him. Blackburn lost by 4-1 at Ewood Park against Leicester. I've got to say, however, I've seen a bit of a theme within their last 2 games. When Blackburn concede very early on, and they have conceded very early on in their last 2 games against Ipswich and obviously Leicester respectively, they hit back and respond brilliantly. Sammy Smodics equalised against Leicester, and honestly I was thinking, oh gosh, this is almost deja vu for what I was used to when I was watching Ipswich play Blackburn literally only within a week ago after that. So it's feeling a bit repetitive that when Blackburn do hit back and they do get that equaliser that they mostly get, they don't build up on that momentum to potentially kill teams off, and unfortunately they run out of gas, and then Leicester just ultimately punished them. 4-1 winners with 4 different goal scorers as well, which just shows you the abundance of talent with that Leicester squad. I think going into this game here, I'm seeing this Coventry side potentially start to improve. Blackburn, I think, will always give you goals. I think we will get a draw between these two. Coventry have drawn a lot of games this year, so I think I'm going to carry on that trend and say a 1-1 draw. But honestly, if either one of them win, I don't think it'll be a big shock to me. I think this game's really close, probably the closest one out of the games that I've done so far. So I'm going to go for a draw. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next up is Leeds versus QPR. Now, both would really like a win within this midweek. Both have lost within a 2-goal margin, and in fact, both have lost 3-1 in their games as well. With Leeds against Southampton, of course, and QPR losing 3-1 against Coventry. Both at one point were 3-0 down in their games, and both managed to get a consolation, both in different periods of the game. With Strojcic for Leeds, he got one within the 60th minute, but Leeds couldn't really find a way to build from it. And for QPR, they got their late goal within the 89th minute, I think it was, with Sinclair Armstrong getting the assist for Kenneth Powell. So I'm not really going to be as harsh as I am for QPR as I am for Leeds, because I felt with Leeds, with them getting that early consolation, they could have really built from something in that second half. But I think you've got to give credit where it's credit's due for Southampton for managing the game. I think going into this one here, Leeds could use this way to respond. But QPR at this moment of time have actually picked up more points away from home than they have at home this year. So I think that's going to be an interesting challenge. Honestly, I could see this being a 0-0 draw, you know. But I'm going to change my mind last minute. And I think if Leeds score early, I think they'll win this. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Leeds. But honestly, I don't think this one's going to be very straightforward. I think it's going to be very edgy for this Leeds side, but I think they'll get the job done. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Leicester versus Preston. I mean, what a tough couple of games Preston have had. I mean, after that West Brom game, which I think was definitely a shock, I think was probably one of the most shocking results in the whole weekend, considering Preston were going into that game unbeaten. But Preston not only have Leicester to follow that up, they've got Ipswich Town, both away games as well. So Preston definitely are going to have a very tough end to this run of games before the second international break. Leicester definitely, I think, are now starting to get into their groove, and I actually don't think they've dropped a point since the last international break. I think actually the last time they did lose a game was the game before the international break, when they lost 1-0 to Hull City. So after that period onwards, they've actually picked up 100% points, which will be absolutely incredible for this Leicester City side to potentially perform if they can do that. And honestly, with the depth that they have, the squad players they've got, I think Leicester are proving to now starting to be a cheat code for this season. They've now got some breathing space between them and Ipswich on the top of the table. And honestly, if they can dismantle Preston, they will not only continue that 100% start, but they will increase the gap against teams around them too. So as a prediction, I think we're going to see a 3-1 victory for Leicester, and I think we're going to start seeing why Leicester were the favourites to be promoted within right at the beginning of the season. So it's back-to-back defeats for Preston, and it doesn't get easy for them to play against Ipswich after this. But honestly, I can see Preston maybe getting a result if they can hold and frustrate Leicester for long enough and maybe sneaking a goal in from a dead ball situation. But if Leicester score early, I think it's going to be very tough for them. So we're going to go 3-1 Leicester. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Rotherham going up against Bristol City. Both teams going into this game with a defeat in their weekend game. Rotherham lost 2-0 against Cardiff City, and I think we're the only side actually to not have a single shot on target this weekend, which does spark some concern within their attacking play. Bristol City will be wondering how on earth they didn't even get a draw in their game when they led Stoke City by 2-0 at one point within the 40th minute, but then lost the game by 3-2. It would have been a very frustrating performance from Bristol City, and Nigel Pearson would definitely not be taking any prisoners, I can tell you that. Going into this game, Rotherham, I think, have done better at home. Their only win so far this season has come against Norwich City. Potentially, we could see a situation where Rotherham, I think, will pose a threat, and I think they could even score first in this game. But Bristol City away from home have been really, really decent and actually consistently getting some good results out of there. So as a prediction, I'm going to predict that Bristol City will squeak out a 2-1 away victory. I don't think it's going to be straightforward, but I think they'll get the job done with just enough players getting into their decent amount of space. So I'm going to go 2-1 Bristol City. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Next game to predict is Sunderland going up against Watford. Very different results between both of these sides going into this midweek game. So Sunderland kicked things off actually in this weekend by beating Sheffield Wednesday by 3-0. 2 goals from Jack Clarke, who I think is now the top goal scorer within the Championship with 7 goals. Absolutely sensational stuff from Jack Clarke at this stage of this season. And it was a player that I really, really did like the look of. And I'm really glad now that he's blossoming into a consistently well-talented Championship player. Watford are a very tricky side to put your finger on what's going wrong with them so far, because they're definitely creating a lot, but I just don't think they're clinical, and I think that has been their biggest issue. They are definitely creating a lot, and because they're chasing the game a lot of the time, it's leaving them a little bit open at the back, which is why they did manage to ship the goals that they did manage to ship against Middlesbrough recently. And this was not the only time we saw Watford concede more than 3 goals in the game. We saw that again against Coventry City. So defensively, I think Watford have got a little bit of an issue. And I think going into this game here, while Sunderland don't have the best record at Stadium of Light, I think they could get a result here. So as a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Sunderland. I think this will be a very professional performance from them. Watford, I think, could potentially compete, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. So I'm going for 2-1 Sunderland. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. The final game to predict is Swansea versus Norwich. Now, honestly, this one, I've not even decided on the score yet, so that's going to be interesting how I'm going to present this. But both teams going into this game with great confidence. Swansea, 2 3-0 wins in a row, and considering they had not won a game before those 2 3-0 wins in a row, you can very much start to see that I think things are now starting to click with Michael Duff as Swansea manager now. Matt Grimes getting on the score sheet for that Swansea 3-0 win against Millwall. That was a very eye-catching performance for me. And right now, what I think we're starting to see is the players now starting to get used to the passages of play that they need to play to not only cut teams apart, but to stay organised as well, because they were shipping goals as well whilst they were trying to attack too. So I'm really glad that Swansea have seemed to have found that balance now. Norwich, they managed to salvage a win over the weekend, beating Birmingham by 2-0. Gabriel Sara and Jonathan Rowe, the 2 best players for Norwich so far this season, getting on the score sheet. It's going to be tricky here because, you know, Norwich are going into this period without Josh Sargent, but also Ashley Barnes, both sustaining injuries. They're both of their main first-team strikers. So Adam Ida's got a really big part to play to fill that void with that period of time with them trying to recover. There could be an issue where Norwich don't score as many goals, but they just seem to still get into those situations, which I think you've got to give credit to for their midfield. Now, defensively, I think likewise with Watford, I think there is a big problem with Norwich City there regarding that. But I honestly think with this game, I think we're going to see goals out of this one. I think Swansea are good enough to not lose against Norwich here, but I think Norwich have got the firepower to really make things interesting. So as a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw actually. I've just made my mind up, so I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I've not predicted a 2-2 draw so far, so I'm going to hope that this game really lives up to my expectations and it's a goal fest and it's not a stalemate 0-0. So I'm going to go 2-2. I just have that funny feeling that Norwich will get plenty on the ball and attack. But I think Swansea are now starting to show that they could be clinical as well. So I'll go for that draw. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. So guys, that is all my predictions for midweek done. As always guys, make sure you predict the midweek games as well in the comments down below, so you guys have a chance to score some points on the Let's Alexis Football Prediction League. That will be shown as an update when the international break begins, because after that is when I would have taken my last exam, so that will give me a lot more time to basically catch up on predictions. But they're all saved. They are all saved. I just need a bit of time to calculate them for you. So now wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please smash the like button if you're not done so. It really helps. Please hit the subscribe button, as we're really nearly there for 2,000 subscribers, and maybe we can get it within the next couple of weeks. Thank you guys as always for the terrific support. You guys are smashing it. And please also share the channel too. All these things really do help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary. So the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care everyone.